I'm gonna check out this Adam Sandler movie called Spaceman. Whew. So he plays this astronaut by the name of Jakub. So we found out he's been working in the space station. He's been out in outer space for like 6 months. He done went past Jupiter, and they're supposed to be looking at this Chipora Cloud. It's like this purple cloud in another realms of the universe, right? Now, space station people, they want to get samples of it, but more so to see what's in the mysteries inside of this cloud. But really, the other reason is because they're trying to make sure South Korea doesn't beat him to it. Now, we also found out he has a wife by the name of Lenka. So he's actually able to make phone calls to the station, and he's taking questions from people. This one kid asked him a question and was like, "Are you the loneliest man on the world?" And he comes up with all these things to say. He's like, "Look, I got my team, you know what I'm saying? I got my wife, you know, I'm doing good." Then we find out she's been sending these messages about leaving him, you know what I'm saying? But these messages automatically go through the space station first, and the space station is like, yeah, he's not getting these messages. And Commander Lucy's making sure they abide by this too. Now, you got this guy by the name of Peter, right? Peter's the main person that Jakub has contact with. He's making sure the equipment's good, everything's okay, you know what I'm saying? The voyage is going fine, all this other stuff, but he's really making sure of his health and his well-being. Now, right off the bat, you can tell when he's sleeping or whatever, or trying to sleep, he has insomnia. And he tells him the toilet keeps making noises and stuff like that. But the thing is, some of their cameras are broken. They're trying to get the cameras online, which is taken away from them fixing the toilet. I'm like, really? So throughout this time, Lenka has not been answering his calls in like a couple of months. And you thinking to yourself, how the heck is he making calls to Lenka? Well, so everything is being done through Czechoslovakia, right? They have this thing called the Czech Connect. Now, it's for her to be able to get access from calls from the space station to her house because she has it connected in her house. The crazy thing is, like I said, she hasn't been answering it for the last couple of months. And you're like, what the fuck? So then Jakub has this crazy ass dream about a spider crawling around in his face and whatnot. Then he wakes up, you're like, what the fuck? Then he actually sees this big ass spider on the ship and it actually starts talking to him. So of course he's scared at first, but then the spider actually talks to him about his conscience and things of this nature. So now we're all thinking to ourselves that insomnia is really hitting him. It's like he's talking to a fucking big ass spider. Which actually brings up another point. Why the fuck is he by himself in this goddamn ship? Usually for some type of crazy ass mission like this, you would have about 2, 3, I don't know, maybe like 6 people in the ship, you know what I'm saying? That in itself right there is fucking mind-boggling. Somehow this spider is making him confront his feelings. He tries to get away from him at first, and then obviously it doesn't work. Then after a while, he actually starts feeding him hazelnut Nutella or whatever like that because the spider asked for some eggs. And he told him the fertilization wouldn't last inside of a spaceship, so he ends up giving him some nutmeg. So we get a lot of different flashbacks within this, so like, here we go. He gets a flashback where he talked to Lenka about this conversation right before he's about to take off at the space station. Then we find out in real time Lenka's actually going to her mother's house, and then we find out that she's actually pregnant right now. Don't trip everybody, it is Jakub's kid. Then it gets to a point where they didn't have communications for a while. We're like, oh shit, the only person he was talking to was Peter. It's like, what the fuck? Then he finally gets a call from Peter or whatever like that. He says some miscommunication with the Czech Connect or whatever like that. But boy. So they're trying to get it back online until we see the commander meet up with Lenka. And she basically told her they disabled the Czech Connect to make sure that she doesn't get out any other messages that will fuck up Jakub's mentality while he's in space. I'm like, yo. Then we get this one flashback scene to where Jakub and Lenka first met. They end up going in the pool, getting to swim, whatever like that. But now the thing is, Jakub is scared of the water, but I'll explain that in a minute. Then while he's talking to the spider, he wants to give him a name. He ends up calling him Giannis. Then he talks about this story about how Giannis had a dad that had these religious beliefs and stuff like that, whatever. But the thing was, the dad ended up getting killed. Now, we don't know whether the story is true or not until he talks about how his dad got killed by the people, whatever like that, going for his beliefs and whatever. And then he talks about how he got thrown in the river and nearly almost drowned. And we're like, oh, shit. Giannis is the younger version of Jakub. He's talking about himself. And that's why he didn't want to get in the water when he first met up with Lenka. Then we get some more flashbacks, I guess, getting into the relationship, you know what I'm saying? They're having their problems back and forth. Like at the beginning, she loved his ambition, but it got to a point where his dreams was consuming his whole life. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of self-reflection. So for the sake of this story, the spider's going to be called Giannis, so I'm going to keep calling it that. So Jakub and Giannis are looking at the Chipora Cloud, right? Because they're getting closer to it. And he asks him, when am I going to see in it? And Giannis responds, the beginning and the end. So we're like, what does that even mean? So we see in the flashbacks his work is really consuming him, and then it takes this one scene that really blows it out the water. So we see this one scene when Lenka was jogging on a treadmill or whatever like that, and all of a sudden you see blood come out of her leg. We're like, oh shit, turns out she had a miscarriage. This was her first child, so the child that she's having now is her second. So we see this one scene, she's on the phone. I don't know if she was really trying to explain what happened or whatever, but bottom line is Jakub was too busy. He was running around doing all this type of stuff at the space station and shit, and we're like, damn. And he wasn't even there to comfort her at like her worst moments. And the thing is, he's made a lot of promises to her that he's broken. You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty messed up. So you can see at this point, she's probably just pretty much broken. And after that, he's about to go on a year fucking journey to explore the nether realms of the Chipora Cloud. I'm explaining what happens with that in a minute. So Lenka's basically gone to this like area where there's like a bunch of other women that they support each other, help each other, stuff like that. It's like this hotel type it's hard to explain. Bottom line is, I got plenty of people to make sure she's okay. So after Jakub has done all this self-reflection and self-awareness with Giannis, right? He's finally able to get on the phone with Peter again. He tells Peter he wants him to go to Lenka so he can deliver this one final message. Peter's getting all these excuses about the, space station and the voyage and all the busyness and stuff like that. But Jakub don't give a fuck about that. He's like, look, give her this last message. So while she's in yoga classes, she's interrupted. They got her to the front door, and then Peter's just sitting there, and he turns around and looks at her, and he's just like, oh, no, he's still alive. And I'm like, nigga. You can see the look on her face like anybody would have thought. It was like, she about to have a fucking heart attack, yo. So he gets her in this room, right? And then he ends up calling Jakub, putting the phone down, and he leaves out the room just in case, get their privacy and shit. Then Jakub ends up giving this heartfelt apology about everything to Lenka, right? He didn't even need her to speak. He just wanted her to listen. And after that, at this point, he's about to strap himself in because now they're about to dive straight into the Chipora Cloud, the Chipora Cloud. The connection's there, but then they get in turbulence and stuff like that. Then we get the situation where Giannis is wheezing, and we're like, what the heck is going on with Giannis? He talks about his time being almost up. Then we get the scene where Jakub as a kid is actually talking to Giannis himself as a small spider. So now you're thinking to yourself, oh, this is where the idea of him thinking about talking to a spider came from. Because everything Giannis has been telling him throughout the entire movie is more like a thing of self-reflection, self-awareness, being able to confront himself because he's been very selfish when it comes to Lenka. And that's like the only person that really could get him out of his, so really should got him out of his selfishness, kept him happy or whatnot. The crazy thing, he says space reminds him of when he was a kid. It feels like he's drowning in space. And it's just like, considering he's by himself, he's literally all alone in his ship. And it's like, the euphoria is crazy. Now, Giannis had told this story about how he was getting away from his tribe, and then he reflected it to Jakub. It was like, is that the way you feel you were trying to get away? And I'm thinking to myself, let's just say hypothetically, Giannis is real. How the fuck did he get on the ship? After 6 months of Jakub being isolated by himself, all of a sudden this motherfucker just pops up. It's like, from space in the middle of nowhere past Jupiter. All right, so now I got that out of my system. Let's continue on. So all of a sudden we see Giannis is wheezing, right? And Jakub wants to make sure he always keeps Giannis by his side or whatever like that. Then all of a sudden you see Giannis falling out of the ship into the Chipora Cloud. Do you know what Jakub does? This motherfucker gets into the airlock containment unit, opens the hatch, attaches the fucking thing to a cord to the daggone thing. And this motherfucker in the astronaut suit flies out of the ship so he could try to catch and save Giannis. Nigga, do you know what happens after that? Something hits the latch and it detaches himself. Now he is floating away from the ship into the fucking Chipora Cloud, yo. While this is happening, he's hanging on to Giannis, and Giannis wants to show him something. He talks about the beginning and the end. While they're going through the Chipora Cloud, Jakub is literally seeing a timeline about everything that was going on in his entire life leading up to this point. And afterwards, Giannis starts disintegrating, and then we just see him floating by himself. At the same time, we get a shot of Lenka just looking up at the sky, right? She could actually see the Chipora Cloud from Earth, but it's like ridiculously far away. You know what I'm saying? It just looks like it's closer. And then we got this vision where we see Jakub. He's like going through this river or whatever like that with his astronaut suit on. And he sees Lenka dressed up as like a goddess or whatever. And he asks, can he kiss her? He says it would probably kill him. And I'm thinking to myself, is he going to remove his fucking helmet? I'm like, please don't do that shit. Do you see this one vision of Jakub looking at the space station? He is so far away from this shit. And then all of a sudden it like fades to black. The final scene, we see Lenka sitting by her car or whatever like that. Then the phone rings and she's got the phone inside the car. So she picks up the phone. It ends up being Jakub on the phone. Jakub is fixing stuff inside the space station. There's two other people in the space station. So we're like, wait, what the fuck? Then she talks about some shit about the kiss meant everything and all that. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, yo. Am I having euphoria right now? I'm thinking to myself, did he even take off his space to begin with? Like, there was no time gap saying like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later. None of that shit. Was he just working on it, not able to go out there yet? Like, the whole last scene just fucked me up completely. I would say in this movie, we could easily concur that Giannis was in his head. The whole thing about Giannis was clearly making sure that he did some self-reflection. You watch and you tell me if you can make sense of all this. Spaceman on Netflix. Check it out.